Hi everyone, this is Jacqueline from She Rises Studios, and welcome to today's author celebration for Mindset Mastery. Unfunk your thinking, rewire your brain, and unlock your full potential. A transformative anthology for every visionary, entrepreneur, and growth driven leader ready to take the inner game seriously. In this collection, you'll hear from high performance professionals and powerhouse leaders who've been through the trenches, people who've unfunked their thinking and rewired their lives from inside out. And today, we celebrate a few of the authors behind this work. Their stories, strategies, and science backed insights are proof that the mind is your most powerful tool. When mastered, it becomes your greatest asset. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi, hi. So let's go back to the title of this particular book. First of all, Mindset Mastery is already an intriguing title. And then we added Unfunk Your Thinking, Rewire Your Brain, and Unlock Your Full Potential. In maybe in a sentence or two, how would you sum up the entire book?
Well, I think
I
the title has is segmented. Mindset mastery sounds very scientific, very
Mhm.
process oriented, and a lot of people when I coach and speak, they said, "Is that really possible to master your mindset?" But
Yes.
God has given us the ability to do it through the neuroplasticity process. So we now have the responsibility. Now that we have the knowledge, we're sharing the coaching, the knowledge, the proven process. So we go from ability to responsibility and making
Mm.
sure that we are teaching, all of us on this call are already engaged in helping people find the right tool sets that will
Mhm.
help them with their mindset. So it's always mindset before skill set, because we can't
Mhm.
sustain our thinking around skill sets if our mindset, our brains are not healthy. So I love the title because it starts out very grand, and then it goes to unfunk your thinking, and immediately you think, yeah, my mind is crazy sometimes. And I'm a 70s, 60s, and 70s kid. I grew up in that era. And I remember when we were talking about funky things going on, that they weren't clear, they were all over the place. So when you unfunk, you bring clarity and process to that mindset. So I love the title because it covers all spectrums of how we think about our brains.
That's true. I love that. That's wonderful. Yes, Erica, you were supposed to share.
yeah. No, you're fine. Yeah, I would echo the same thing that she said. I think you get a taste in this book of lots of different perspectives from different authors' points of view and things that they have all done, worked with others, done for themselves. And the mindset mastery part of it, I agree, is one of those things that we can master our minds. We have that ability to shift and change anything in our life. But sometimes we got to clear the mess or the unfunk, clear the mess before we discover how to use that in the best ways possible. And so,
Yeah,
I feel like it's teaching people how to unwire the stuff that doesn't work and wire the stuff in that will be healthy and helpful for them to have a successful life in whatever area you want to change.
that's true. Love that.
Yeah, for me, I think that the it's nice because the title is somewhat grand, as we said, but
Mhm.
it really is, I think, creating the permission for us to go ahead and think that, like, okay, this is in our control. This is something that we can do. Because I think that what happens is that we all get so wound up and trapped in whatever perspectives and stories that we tell about where we are in life, in our own lives,
Mhm.
and that could feel very limiting, and you could feel trapped. And so I love this book because what it is it allows so many different perspectives. I mean, there's
Mhm.
11 authors, right? And so I mean,
Yes.
with that, you can I think that the most expansive learnings come from the most kind of like unexpected places. So
Mhm.
whereas you may usually kind of find a book or something that you highly relate to, that
Mhm.
may not be as helpful because it may just kind of reinforce things that you already know and you're already patterns
Yes.
that already exist. What I like about this is that it could really break things open, because if you go ahead and read through every chapter, it's like, wow, there's like so many different people that come with so many different experiences, skill sets, backgrounds, approaches, techniques, and some things may really resonate and some things may not, but what you'll find is something new and novel that maybe can give you permission to open up to something that really will be more effective than anything you've experienced. So I that's what I like about this book in particular.
That's wonderful, and that's true. Because this book is a collaboration of so many um, authors with both science background and experience. Definitely, people, you will have at least one, if not all, tools that might be relatable to you. Speaking of the tools, a lot of us, a lot of our listeners, and a lot of the people in this world battle with mental clutter. As you mentioned, the head can sometimes be a little bit crazy. What is your go-to strategy for clearing it out?
I was going to say, for me, I mean, I practice a lot of like physical and practice things. So like meditation, I mean, I learned and practiced transcendental meditation, which is a very common type of meditation.
Mm,
Kind of in my deepest practice, then I'll do, twice a day. But what's even more important for me is actually making sure I'm taking care of myself physically. I write about this a little bit in my chapter, but making sure I'm getting some kind of exercise every day. And then I'm eating foods that are whole and organic and that are supporting my systems. I mean, we're all getting older every day, and I think that our minds are housed by our bodies. I say this in
yes.
my chapter, but it's like, our blood, our veins, our stomach. I mean, every part of our systems is feeds our brains, and so the better we could take care of our physical body, the better foundation we'll have to take care of our mindset. And so I think that that's always my first go-to. If I'm feeling very stuck, I'm like, well, maybe I haven't. Depression makes you not want to get up and exercise, and things like that. So I mean, that's the first thing I'll try to take care of as a first.
Mhm. That's wonderful. That's true. If your body is aching, I think it'll be a little bit difficult for you to concentrate and unfunk your brain, right?
Mhm.
Well, that's what happens. I mean, not to but we'll get stuck in cycles, right? I mean, if you're
Yes.
physically not feeling good, then you're more stuck in your head. That's where these
Hmm.
funky cycles start to really you get trapped in them a bit, and so that's
Yeah.
why it's a very great step to step out of that with the physical care first.
I love that he shared about meditation. I'd use meditation as well, and I would say, like in this book, I shared a little more about just having awareness, and meditation can help a lot with awareness, but having awareness of like, hey, I'm getting triggered in this particular area, or I have, as
Yes.
he had, as Douglas mentioned, a pattern that I want to
Hmm.
shift and change. And if we can kind of look above that particular situation that's happening and ask ourselves, and pausing and asking ourselves, okay, what could I do different in this moment, and taking a breath to micro shift into what could I do differently, and then repeating that over and over again. It takes that repeating to rewire. I was also thinking about that in each of the chapters. Like, every time we hear somebody say these things over and over again, even if you've heard it 100 times, that's great, because repetition is what rewires. Repetition rewires. Repetition rewires. So the more that you can learn to pay attention to what's going on and decide, how do I want to react in that?
Hmm.
Breathe through it, allow the feelings, those kinds of things. And we can micro shift and then repeat, so that we can help individuals to shift out of that. And we can do it ourselves. It just sometimes is a lot better when you have an accountability person like a coach or a
Yes.
mentor or a friend, to go through those things, because sometimes we feel like, well, I know this, but I haven't got it down. Well, it takes at least 200 repetitions doing it that way before it gets stuck in the brain in a pattern where now that becomes more of your autopilot than the old patterns.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. 200 repetition, and then we get rewired.
Yeah, and piggybacking on both of the comments, I taught a workshop this past Saturday, and I reminded my workshop, that 70,000 thoughts go through our brain a day. 70,000.
Wow.
90% of those are repetition. They're repeated thoughts. They're not new thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves us with 30% of really innovative thinking outside of whatever we might be ruminating on or worrying about or wondering about. It doesn't have to always be negative. It can be positive. But 90% are not new thoughts. So when I get stuck, or when I need what I call the power of the pause in my life, is grounding. And it goes right with what Douglas and Erica said. Grounding is where I take a breath and I think I need to be grounded. And I have several ways I ground myself. My best space is in nature, being outside, taking a walk, seeing the sunset. I'm very, very in tune with nature, and it speaks to me because I feel like God is present. I'm a woman of faith, and it just brings God into my very mind, my heart. And when your mind and heart are in sync, then all of a sudden your actions and behaviors sync up with it as well. And so that grounds me, brings me back, and I'm able to take a pause and find the power of what my next shift needs to be. Because when you pattern interrupt like that, when you recognize you need to interrupt a pattern that's not serving you, it's immediately your brain is seeking, well, which pattern should I hold on to? So you have to replace it with that new pattern. And as Erica said, the repetition, putting these things into practice, the more you practice them, all of a sudden you create a new default. And then your brain is happy because it automatically defaults to the negative. And unless we participate in that and replace it with something positive, it won't have a new default. So grounding really speaks to me a lot.
I love that. And I love these new not new, but maybe new for me and from some of our audiences, that there is a way to do it, and these tools are found in the book. Now, but the nice thing about this book is that these are not just 1, 2, 3, like a list of tools that they can use. It's a blend of personal stories with science-backed strategies that you guys are sharing. How do you balance the storytelling with practical takeaways in your chapter?
Well, I think the neurodiversity of our brains shows up in this book. Our brains are very diverse in the way that they might physically have been created with the same substance, but the mind has created, the brain is just the organ. What we do with the processes in our episodical life, processing those thoughts that go in, is what creates our mind. And our mindset is what shows up for us. Whatever mindset we show up with, what we do with what we've experienced, is what creates the difference between the brain, who's biologically functioning, and the mind, which is actually serving us. And as Douglas mentioned, our brain is connected to every single piece of our body. Nothing exists without the function of the brain. And the better we take care of it, and knowing what it needs, because it's basically fat and water. It's 80% water. And so the first thing that I do in the morning is drink 20 ounces of water as soon as I rise up, because I'm thirsty. My brain is thirsty. My body's thirsty. And it just clears my head, and I immediately go into gratitude. What am I happy about being able to do today?
That's wonderful.
So you mentioned the balancing of storytelling. I think, I've been doing this almost 40 years, and it's like a part of my life. For me, I just kind of geek out of it. So, it's kind of, I'm writing things that I teach, and I'm writing things that I practice, and I don't teach anything that I don't practice first. So, I'm assuming that it's probably the same for each of them, as like, when you find a strategy that helps for you, when you're in that helping field, like you're so excited, you want to teach somebody else, like, oh, this really helped me so much. And so I think, it's that the balance is like, hey, I live this every day. I practice this every day. And I want to kind of just mention that healing isn't linear. Shift and change is not linear. It is a process, and relapse is going to happen. So you're normal if you're going along and you're doing great, and all of a sudden you mess up. And it's also okay to say, oh, well, this tool works much better for me than another tool. So, I think the storytelling is just helps people to go, oh, okay, these people do the same stuff themselves. They're not just over here going, here's what research says. We're living it, right?
Yes, that's wonderful. That's true. And I love that you mentioned that there's a relapse and it's okay, right? Yes, Douglas.
I was going to say, for me, it's actually interesting because this was my first time really writing something that was much more direct in what I wanted to communicate about like, these philosophies and these approaches and these methods. Most of what I've written before was abstract stories, right? And so I'd have to say, for my first time, maybe, this is my first attempt, so I didn't really know how to go about it. So what I do is I kind of like put forward my philosophies and then kind of say what I did in this this period of taking this play from idea to off Broadway in just a few months, and then just hope it kind of gets all put together, because I'd cite where the philosophy played into the story, but to be honest, it's my quite the opposite of Erica. It's my first time doing this in this way, and this was a great opportunity to give something like this a try, and that's part of what I actually kind of want to put out there, is that I had a lot of fear around doing that, and one of the things I write about is using fear as a guide a little bit. I feel like fear is where the unknown, it points to the unknown, it points to something that you may not have yet experienced. That's where the fear comes from, but that to me indicates, well, this is where you may have the best chance for growth. And so I feel like through this experience, I've grown quite a bit myself, and even that growth and that demonstration of going towards your fear, I hope translates and helps those reading.
That's wonderful. And, I love that you mentioned that this is your first time to do this type of book. And despite the fear, you went ahead courageously and did it. And I'm sure, a lot of people will be able to relate to it. Now, in one word, how can you describe the impact that you would want for this book to have on your readers? Just one word.
It has to be kind of a compound word for me, if that counts, but or maybe like shifting. I want to say like perspective shifting, but just the ability to just step it, just look at something from a different angle. So yeah, maybe just a shifting would be my word.
I love that. Sometimes you see things this way. You just have to shift just a little bit for you to see that there is might be a better way, right?
I can't do one word for this book just because it's such, like the other books I could, but to this book, like, you can change anything anything in your life if you choose to. And this book gives you tools to do that.
Yeah, the word transformation comes to my mind because every single story that comes from a diverse background and process, and there's going to be something, if somebody, the reader will stay with all the stories, there are going to be nuggets along the way. I don't believe that 100% of my story is going to resonate with somebody, but I believe lots of it will. And so if they gather up what their brains are processing and what they think will help them, I think it will be transformational. Just stay open and ready to make the shift, as Douglas said.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, our dear authors, for this powerful celebration of truth and transformation and mental mastery, for showing us that there is indeed a way to unfunk and rewire our brain. And to our listeners out there, Mindset Mastery is this more than a book. It's a movement, a call to stop playing small and start unfunking our thoughts and get to our own full potential. The book, Mindset Mastery, is now available on Amazon. So please go ahead, grab a copy, share it with someone, read it in your book club, and let's start unfunking our minds. Thank you so much again, everyone.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.